This episode is a part 2 episode, meaning that it's a continuation of the conversation from our previous episode, part 1. If you haven't listened to that, now's a great time to pause, listen to part 1 first, and then come back for part 2.
Listen, we do not have family dinner every night. We do not, it's maybe 3 or 4 nights a week. My husband travels a lot for work. We have 2 kids playing soccer, and then you add in any extracurricular, whether it's open house at school or a Boy Scout thing, it's just
never ending.
It's never ending. But a thing that I come back to a lot is my mom was a single mom. My parents divorced. My dad moved far away, and so I'd only see him in the summer. So she somehow managed to put herself through graduate school, work a couple jobs, and still have what felt like we had family dinner every night, and that on Sundays she always made pancakes. I know now as a parent that that might have been once a month that she made pancakes, or 2 nights a week that we had family dinner together. But because it was repeated enough throughout my childhood, I think of that. So I think it's really the quality over quantity with those kinds of things, and as often as you can repeat them, the kids will remember.
Oh, they will.
Yeah.
Those are huge memories that you've set for them, and traditions that they'll want to do with their kids, right? Because they're going to remember the joy, and I think that's a huge part of it, right? It's not about the food. It's not about the conversation. It's not about the game that you play. It's the joy that you're instilling in them and showing them that even as hard as life is sometimes, right? And we hope our children don't feel the way we do sometimes with different trials that we face, but letting them know hey, it's going to be okay. And you put on, I want to say you're masking everything else, but letting them know, right? Y'all are happy, you're engaged, your family's sitting together, whatever your family looks like, whether that's your partner, whether it's your husband or your wife, or if it's your grandparents and siblings and whatever that looks like. I think that's encouraging. We're going to set a goal right now. I think at least trying to do 2 nights sitting at the family table. So we would encourage everyone. Now, there are some of you that are we sit around the table every night, and I love that. I'm
Good
so glad. And invite me over so you can cook for my family. But 2 nights a week, I think that's an awesome goal. And we are going to follow up to see who's doing that, because that's fantastic.
I'm going to check in with you.
You should. That'll be good.
Okay.
Earlier, we had kind of talked about the family dynamics. Now, you just mentioned your husband travels a lot. How does that kind of change and shift around the schedule for you and kind of your responsibilities within the home?
Well, it doesn't. In some ways, it doesn't change it. My husband's a freelance. We're both freelancers, honestly, but I work from home. I can use my home kitchen for recipe development, and I podcast from my son's room.
Oh, cool.
And my husband is a freelancer, and he works in film, so he travels to Atlanta at least once a week for a couple of days. And we still have family in the Atlanta area, which is where he grew up and is where we met. But we are so, we're such routine people that, yes, I take on a little bit more responsibility, maybe more carpool driving when he's gone, but it's all really kind of the same.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And when he's home, he's off. It's not he goes to the office on the days when he's not traveling. So he can be very hands-on, and I can do more, take on more work or just be more involved with the kids when he's home. So it always balance. It's really balanced. And I think, we've been together for 12 years. We've been together for 14 years. We've been married for 12 years in November. It's changed a lot since our kids were little. We've worked out with the division of responsibility and the division of labor is in our family, and it feels as close to 50-50 as it can possibly be. My husband does not really cook. He makes scrambled eggs. The kids say they're better than mine, which I think is incredibly rude. But okay. It's nice that they have one thing that
of course
they think of as their dad's meal. But he's always willing to go pick up the grocery order or do the dishes and
so
contribute meal. When I'm I don't know what to meal plan this week, he'll be ooh, I'm really craving burgers, or I really want to do a fried chicken salad. So he contributes to the feeding of our family in a lot of ways that are not just the cooking part of it.
Or growing up, the traditional, which, I mean, my mother was able to stay home. She taught piano lessons and did some theater stuff, but was able, so she naturally was the one cooking, cleaning, and kind of back in the 80s, 90s, that's sometimes what you did see.
Right.
And even you think of like Miss Cleaver, all of those, I still think, I'm like, how did they look that good at the end of the day? Like, how is there no, like, did they not get ready until 5 o'clock knowing their husband was coming home at 5:30? Yes. Like, wow, your hair is perfect and your lipstick's still not faded, right? And perfectly lined. But I think being in those roles traditionally, I feel like the best thing is that we've maybe broken that a little bit.
Right.
To where we realize that every relationship, it cannot be all on one side or the other. It won't work. To be balanced, there has to be a give and take. And yes, maybe someone is the one who is better at cooking and likes to cook, but it doesn't mean it has to be the woman. Right. It also doesn't mean it can't, that even if the man is in the role, that the woman can't come in and take a piece of that. If they want to come in and cook eggs or pancakes or whatever. And so I love that my husband has always been a helpmate. Right, which in any relationship, that's what you want. Right, you want someone that's going to make you better and that's going to help.
Your partner. Yes. Yeah,
and that wants that as much as you do to have a household that's run efficiently. And especially since my accident a couple years ago, he has. I mean, I joke all the time. He's like, Mr. Mom, even when I was laying in a hospital bed in the middle of our living room, always helping, especially without me driving outside of my sweet little Cadillac here. Driving kids to school, right? And to and from, or picking up grocery orders, all of that, which is so helpful in the home when you do have something balanced. And yes, does it look every day 50-50? No. But in general, which makes things, I feel like, even in the relationship better, because you know that they are there to support you. Right?
Yeah, and it's really easy to share gratitude rather than resentment.
Oh, for sure.
But I'm so curious, does Nick cook? Does he have something like Brian's scrambled eggs that is like his contribution to feeding? Because I know that you love to cook, but
yes,
it sounds like you don't do it every night and can't do it every night.
I don't. Yeah. He does. So he can make anything. And I'm grateful. We're about 7 years apart, and so he lived on his own well before I met him. So he learned how to do all of that. I'm like, I married a man who still likes to do his own laundry. I'm like, I lucked out, but he definitely is self-sufficient and can, or the nights that I'm stuck at the office late or whatever that looks like, I know they're going to be okay. We also bought, I think it was half a cow from a local farm, which I loved. Like, we know what they're fed and where they're coming from, and at least if the farmer's not lying to us. And you
can save a lot of money that way too. Yeah.
It ended up coming in like $1.30 a pound, like something ridiculously low that you were not going to see. But I stopped eating meat, well, I shouldn't say all meat, but red meat shortly after that. And so all the time he's like, we've got to do the ground beef. And I'm like, you know what? I'll worry. And that's part of it. I'm like, okay, you do your burgers, you do whatever you need to do for them, or, spaghetti or whatever that looks like. And then I'll just, eat my vegetables over here. So.
Yeah. And then you're also setting a model for your kids too about like how they'll contribute to the house. Like everyone participates in some part of feeding us. It's like kicking and dragging to get my daughter to cook now, but when she was really little, she loved it. And my son, who is like the same age as Oakley, he has more interest in it. And it's just nice. It's like this, not a lot of pressure for them to feel like they have to learn to cook, and they get to come by that interest very honestly, like just when they want to. Like, I want to learn to make cookies today, or teach me how to make your scrambled eggs, Dad.
Yes. Yeah. That is, I think, the hardest thing for me. When we're cracking eggs, I know that it's not a baby in there, but that little yellow, or sorry, not the, you're like the yolk, what's happening? No, the little white thingading that is
it's called an albumin. Okay. Yeah. But yes, I know exactly what
it's absolutely disgusting, and I literally crack the egg, and then I will literally take the egg and pull that out. Okay. Because it makes me just I can't
also
do it.
Makes for more tender eggs to take it out, because it's a little like protein strand in there.
Yeah. It grosses me.
So you're like doing high level culinary stuff.
Look at me. That's exciting. Yep. I've always seen it. I'm like, I don't know what that is. So, but cracking eggs are like the hardest thing for me to let my children do. Oakley loves to be in the kitchen and making whatever. So I was like, ooh, you're cracking eggs, I want to crack. And I'm like, oh, how much time do we have? And it's so selfish. But, you know, they crack it. And I'm like, the only way to not get shells in there is if you let them do it. Because practice makes perfect. And I tell myself that all the time. It's so many times I'm like, okay, why don't you crack this one in your bowl? And we'll... and actually, he is getting better. But
that is a smart move in general. Like, I went to culinary school for baking and pastry arts, and one of the things that they teach you is, like, because occasionally you can get a bad egg, if you have to crack, like, 3 dozen eggs, it's much better to do, like, a small bowl, crack it in there, you can check for shells, and then add it to the bulk of, like, all the other. Yes. But, man, like, cooking, baking with kids, it's so messy, and that's sometimes, like, the biggest hurdle for parents. So we always joke, like, whatever you're making with your kids, you need a bigger bowl. Like, the biggest bowl that you have for mixing things in, that's the bowl that you need, even if you're just making, like, a small batch of cookies, because the flour is going to go flying.
Oh, for sure.
It's a whole thing.
And then your child will start packing flour, and you're like, no, the brown sugar gets packed, not the flour. Ew. You have this... Oh, we've had a lot of fun, as you can tell by the sounds that I have made in the last 30 seconds. That we've had a lot of fun in the kitchen. But we do it because it's important.
Yes.
And one day, I loved growing up and being able, my parents, one night a week, I would get to cook for the family, and I was in high school, and I just loved it. And so to be able to you have that opportunity, right? Not only to serve well, but to embrace new recipes, or to cook stuff, or to whatever, knowing that we always know, right, the way to the person's heart is through the stomach, and just being able to bring that joy. And so I want that for him. If this is an avenue that he would like to serve in, or that he has an interest, I would hate. I think any of us as parents, we don't want to be the one who squashes it, right? Or blows out their candle.
Whether it's like they want to be a Food Network celebrity or they want to be a football player.
Yes.
Yeah.
We want to support them well. And I know sometimes that gets hard navigating. I'm sure your children are very opposite in ways. And
very
so
much.
having to, you can cheer them both on, but when is it like, okay, making sure that we're not either dimming someone's light, that we're celebrating each other, even if it's obviously they don't share the same interest in those, but like, okay, you're not going to go, this baby, Oakley's been raised on the ball field and watching you, so you're not going to go watch a play that he's in, or trying to make those. In what ways do you see your kids kind of are the most different?
Oh, that's so great. I mean, their whole personalities are so different. Like, I have a girl, and like my daughter is 11 and my son is almost 9. So in some ways they have like the boy-girl, very stereotypical differences. Like, he loves to get dirty and she's more inclined to do art. But also she's very, very independent. Like, doesn't want to fall into the crowd. Whatever she's trying to learn to do, she wants to do it herself, like learn to do it herself before she does it side by side with us. Whereas my son is like, I love it. I'm like making a face where I'm just like, oh my God. He just wants to be right there with you. It's not that he's not independent, but he just like wants to be in the same room as you and like wants to do it with you.
The replay in the story.
Yes, yes. But we talk about this, to your point of like not dimming each other's lights. Like, as they've gotten older, it's easier to be like, you're two different people. Like, I can't love Ella the same way I love Emmett. Right. That doesn't make sense for who they are as individuals. Right. But also that, like, we have enough love in our hearts as parents 100%. That at the end of the day, we love them the same volume. It just looks different day to day.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's where the world will tell us that it has to look the same and it has to, and just because it's different doesn't mean it's not right or that you're doing it wrong. I think just kind of that encouragement to try your best, right? That's all we can do is try our best to love and serve them where they are. And I was with some girlfriends last night at dinner, and we were talking about just even as we talked about the balance of relationship, how there's always one someone who's very, very different, right? Not like-minded in a lot of ways, not similar in personality, kind of the spotlight like I am, or the negative Norman, which my husband is now. He's not all the time.
Negative Nick,
but
Norman.
He could be. There we are.
Sorry, Nick.
And I think that but that's why these relationships work. But I think it's funny that you also see that a lot of times in our children,
right?
And just how different they are, but in the family, how much harmony comes because we aren't the exact same, right? Yes. And our interests are not always aligned, and I think that has room for growth, and it shapes our character a little bit.
It
right?
does.
Being a little more open-minded to see, like, okay, this is why my feelings are hurt because it was stepping on this, but if we look at this side and kind of helps open your mind to maybe some other ideas.
Yeah. We talk about on Didn't I Just Feed You a lot and like parenting around food, that everything in parenting and truly like in life is just a season. So even the stuff that feels hard sometimes where they're like butting up against each other, whatever it is, you know, they're fighting over who gets to use the computer for that time or like who's going to love the dog the most. It's like that stuff doesn't, or even pickiness around the table, like none of that really lasts forever. Right. And we're all like trying to play a longer game and raising whole humans who like go into the world with openness and love and can create community. And that takes like a really long time, and it takes a lot of repetition. And like if it feels hard, it doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong as a parent. Yeah.
It probably means you're doing it right. It does. And I think that, I mean, most of us, right, we want to Bill, you were talking about Ella and how just independent and you know, nature that she is. And I love that. We are raising children in a world that we haven't seen before. Right. And it's changing so vastly and in so many ways. And I think as we continue to instill in them the values that we would love them to have, and we cheer them on to learn and grow who they are. But at the end of the day, right, we all want the same thing, which is for us to have functioning members of society who are kind to people and who help and who I want my kids to be confident in who they are. And if I could instill anything in them,
right?
Just
doesn't that feel like the number one thing to move through life? Yeah, and that's hard to like. It's not, there's no playbook for like how you teach individual kids confidence because they're different.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's, ooh.
It's a big one.
It is. And it's such a fine line. Now, I know we've talked about kind of families. Do y'all also have pets in your home?
We do.
Okay.
This is a weird time to talk about. Not a weird time.
Yeah.
We just said goodbye to our eldest dog in the last 2 weeks. So we're adjusting to having one dog. Yeah. So that's why I'm not like, oh yeah, we have 2 dogs, Miles and Daisy. Yeah. We have Daisy dog. And we have to talk about this. We have a morning gecko named Ginger who belongs to my son.
Ginger, I love that.
And the reason we have to talk about this is because I listened to the first episode of Heather's Most Precious, where you and Oakley talked about his bearded dragon. And as I was driving over here, I was like, I have to tell Heather, like, listen, bearded dragons live forever. You might want to make a change of plans. But it sounds like you guys are fully set. You know what you're in for there.
Well, as much as you can know, without, I think, as our older pup Chase about a year ago passed away, and he was 14 and a half. We got him right before we got engaged, and so he was like the family dog in the same way, and it's so hard. And thankfully we had an adopted bear, rescued him from a shelter mere weeks before Chase passed, and it just ended up being a perfect time. And our cat is also rescued, so now our cat Finnick and our dog Bear are just a year apart, which is super great. But what I wanted was if we're going to have a reptile, which is really scary for someone like me who's like, I feel an ant on me and I'm like freaking out.
The egg
yes, it does. And I knew snakes because at first he was like, snakes. And I was like, oh, I know. We are not, you can move out and get one. Not going to happen. And I was worried about something so small that would our cat eat it. And so I thought as much as the dragons are so small, we've had friends that have had them and they have lasted longer. So I'm like, okay, he would be older to handle the heartbreak that would come with losing, but then also be able to celebrate. Because with Chase, it leaves a void when you don't have your family member. I mean, that's what they are. They're most just part of Most Precious, right? Are our pets. Our furry family members, and not having them does fill a void. Or there sometimes I'll yell at Bear and I'll say, hey Chase, and then I start crying because I'm like, oh my gosh,
I know. I can't keep I can't stop coming in the door and being like, hey, babies, because I expect to see both of them there wagging their tails. And I'm like, oh.
And your heart sinks a little bit because you miss them.
And then for the kids, they don't know life without both dogs. Like, that's what they remember. Even though we got Daisy later, like, she's only 4 and Miles was 14. So they're adjusting to, like, what feels like a whole new life to them. Like, they didn't know life without Miles.
Right. And that's hard. And it's so hard. And I think selfishly that's why I'm like, okay, this one does live a long time. Now, will Oakley have a new roommate in college? Probably.
Yes.
If he does that, will he have to move in with somebody else if he doesn't take it with him? Probably. No, but I'm excited for what that looks like. And he always wanted to be a veterinarian or an
I don't know what the word is.
Some bird doctor, ornithologist or something. Okay. I probably got that really wrong, and someone's going to be like, oh, that's so what it's called, and that's okay. And now wants to be an actor because, it's just him.
He wants to share the spotlight.
He does, which will kick him out of the house before that happens. No. But I think him, the empathy that he is a huge part of his character. Yeah. And to show that with animals and for him to have his little farm. I just am excited.
And have responsibility. Also, I just got really excited because I was thinking about how you said Oakley is not really your vegetable lover. But when he has Blaze, the bearded dragon, who eats vegetables and fruits regularly, might encourage him.
What a
weird way. Like, you were asking about interesting ways people introduce vegetables.
We just created our own.
Bearded dragon. That'll be the secret.
And if it works, that's going to be your new tagline. Get a bearded dragon. It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Yes.
And I am so grateful to have gotten to hear just kind of not only where you've come from, where you've been, and about your family, but also about food and kind of the tips and tricks around them, what you've discovered. Once again, on streaming all platforms, is Didn't I Just Feed You? Which, if you're a parent, you have said that at least once. Or if you're an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent, whatever, you've said that to somebody.
We get the most comments on that. They're like, I'm going to remember that because I say that 3 times a day.
Of course. Yes. It is so fitting. But definitely check it out for recipes and just other information and all of the knowledge that y'all have combined, you and Stacey. That's incredible.
Yeah. And we have an amazing community, which if you go to our website, which is didn'tijustfeedyou.com and go /community, you can join for free. And it's like a whole message board of we say busy home cooks because even though parents are our primary listeners, there are lots of people in our community who are single or they're partnered and don't have kids. And it's like this hive mind of information. So if you're like, I need this very specific recipe, and either Stacey or I can't get to, there's like thousands of other home cooks that hop in there and help. And we share meal ideas every week and recipes there, plus the podcast episodes too, so you don't miss anything.
Absolutely. I love that. And then you get to know y'all a little bit more. I think that's my favorite thing probably about podcasts is learning the personalities.
Right.
And those who you're like, ooh, I really like them. Like, let's be friends.
To my best friends.
Yeah. And then feeling like you're sitting in the room with them, even if you're in the car, even if they're miles away, right? It's neat to have that. So I'm very grateful for you and that you took that time to come hang out with us today. I have to ask this because it wouldn't be an episode without it. Megan, what do you find most precious?
Okay, I wish I could be concise. This is the reason why I have my own podcast, because I cannot make a long story short. The shortest answer is daily joys. There's this whole internet thing right now about like glimmers, which are the opposite of triggers. It's like the little things that bring you joy. And I, like, on my own personal Instagram, I've talked about my struggles with postpartum and then other mental health struggles, like as my kids have gotten older and dealing with burnout and so much. And so every December I do this thing called the good list, which is like sharing 3 things from the day that brought me joy. And even though I only share it in December, it's something that I pay attention to all the time. So I was thinking about this driving over here. Like last night, my daughter asked my husband to hang different rope lights. We are like on our 3rd set. Like first she wanted like fairy twinkle lights, and then it was like this tube glow light, and now it's this like remote controlled LED strip light that like has patterns and colors. And like there was something so joyful about them doing it together. Like he brought the ladder into her room and she helped him. And I think of that as daily joy. Mm-hmm. But like it can also be the days where you just like really nail your cup of coffee and it's like the perfect temperature when you get to drink it and enjoy it, or like sharing a meal with friends, or when you make a big pot of beans to celebrate New Year's. Yeah. I like am always on the lookout for just the little bits of light in every day. And then the other thing I would say is like most precious to me. I feel free to laugh at me. I have like 3 gray hairs, and I love them so much. Because I feel like aging is such a gift.
It is.
And like we don't all get it. We take it for granted, and so
and they talk about a glimmer or a shimmer. Your 3 hairs are shimmering.
3 hairs are shimmering. They're like a different texture. Sometimes I'm like, oh, they look weird. And we all have our own things about aging. There's certain parts of it that are hard, and like my body changing is weird, but like those 3 gray hairs, they mean so much to me. And like it's another year I get to grow my family and be here. Yeah.
And talk about positivity. I'm a very, very positive person, and I think you do get to shape your perception. People want to be around people who are positive. And I think the more positive you think, the more you choose. I literally had this conversation with someone this morning. The more you choose to look for reasons to be grateful, the more that shapes your entire day. You're not going to think about the negative 5 minutes of your day. You're going to think about holistically, I had a great day, because these are the things that happen. And if you open your eyes, even if you're walking through a tough time, if you open your eyes, you're going to be able to see things that you're grateful for. If it's hair, or if it's a home cooked meal, or if it's a neighbor that made you smile, or if it's somebody at Starbucks that paid for your order, there's going to be something that you can be grateful for. And so I love those. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you for having me. This has been really fun.
Absolutely. Well, we will do it again for sure. And for those listening, thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you next week on the next episode of Heather's Most Precious.
Heather's Most Precious is brought to you with love by the Hendrickson Agency, an insurance agency serving all of Georgia and Tennessee. The Hendrickson Agency, properly protecting your most precious possessions. Support for Heather's Most Precious is provided by Study.com, which offers SAT and ACT study materials and even has resources for AP and college credit courses. Listeners of Heather's Most Precious get 30% off their first 3 months of any subscription level with offer code PRECIOUS. Just go to Study.com and use offer code PRECIOUS at checkout. Heather's Most Precious is produced by Chattanooga Podcast Studios and is part of the Podnooga Network. Find out more at ChattanoogaPodcastStudios.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back soon with another episode of Heather's Most Precious.